Thank you. So you are going to need your guts from your bulletin, the outline today. So just out of curiosity, just real quick, shout it out to me. The question of the day was, when did you find yourself in a serious learning season? So kick it out. When was it? Having kids. Good Lord. That is so true. Stuart, yeah. Your first daughter was born. Okay, yep. Somebody over here said something? First year of marriage. Yep, you had to train that guy. What's that? Yes, of course. That's right. That's a husband who still needs to learn a thing or two. Very good. Anybody else? First year of college. Yeah, right. Yeah. What else? Yeah, losing a spouse, losing a husband. That's right. Yeah. John? Started coming to Crosswalk. Yeah, man, that's an uphill climb. That's right. Anything else? Moving. Yeah, that's right, man. I've been there with you. Nothing like a cross-country move to school you up pretty good. Yeah, very good. Yeah, Stuart. Yeah, I went into combat. Very good. Very good. Yeah, a whole lot doesn't matter at that point, doesn't it? Yeah, that's right. The reason I asked that question is I'm going to take you through a different kind of process today than I usually do. And it has to do with the kind of stuff that Paul teaches in this last chapter of Galatians, the kind of content that he gives us. It's sort of his parting words, if you will. But also because it's a very Jesus thing to do what I'm going to make you do today. And some of you are not going to be happy with me at all. And I'm completely okay with that. So there are a couple stories that come to mind. First, Jesus has been teaching all day. He became quite famous, and people wanted to flock to hear him teach and expand on his knowledge and, go deep places. And so one day he's on the Sea of Galilee on the shores, and people are kind of scattered up the mountain to listen to him. And the Sea of Galilee is about the size of Lake Tahoe, and no doubt it's beautiful. So people are there for the day just taking it all in. And it gets to evening time, and the disciples say to Jesus, it's almost dinner. You need to let these people go so they can go find something to eat. Then Jesus says something really crazy. He says, why don't you feed them? And the disciples are looking at their stuff, and they've got enough for 12. And they're like, there's no way we could do this. We can't afford it. That would be a lifetime of work, to feed thousands of people. And he said, well, what do we have? And he said, well, here's this kid that's willing to offer his sack of lunch. It's got a couple fish in it and some bread. How about that? And Jesus is like, all right, let's give it a whirl. And so he blesses it. And then he sends the disciples out with plates of bread and fish, if you will. And they go out, and they keep going out, and they keep coming back, and it's one of these miracle stories. And there are different ways to interpret the story, but just sit in the story for what it is right now. Just let it be. And just picture these disciples grabbing plate after plate, going out into the crowds with fish and bread. There's so much that's created, so the story goes. But after everybody's eaten their fill, there's 12 basketfuls left over, which is a symbolic and significant number. But it's abundance. Can you imagine the disciples' reaction to that, having gotten in on that kind of a deal? I mean, Jesus could have just snapped his fingers, if we want to really play it out, and all of a sudden food would magically appear in a wonderful banquet style with everybody wherever they were seated. Or maybe Jesus could magically fill everybody's belly without them even eating something, if we really want to go that way, but that's not what happened. The way the story goes is he sends the disciples out to actually do it. Because there's something that happens when we actually do the thing ourselves that won't happen if we just sit there and talk about it and think about it. Here's another story. It's similar to that, where Jesus, a couple times he did this, one with just a few and then one with more, where he sends out his disciples. He recognizes he's only one guy, and he can only do so much. And so he says to the disciples one day, all right, time to kick you birds out of the nest. So I am sharing the Spirit of God with you. Know that you are fully endorsed by me and by God to go into these nearby villages and do the exact same stuff I've been doing. And they're like, what? Which means you're going to teach with great wisdom and authority. It's like God is going to give you the words to speak. And you're going to do stuff. Like they're going to be people who are just flat out feeling like losers, and you can say to them, you have the authority to say to them, you're forgiven by God. So it's time to start over. And some people are going to literally have healing, physical healing that needs to happen. And just like I've done it, you're going to do it too. Now, some of the disciples probably didn't want to go. They were probably like, well, can't we just sit here by the campfire and listen to you a little bit longer? And she was like, nope, you can't. Get out of here. And so they did. And they went 2 by 2, scattered into the surrounding villages and communities. And after a day, they came back rejoicing. And they talked about the things they had seen God do through them. And it was awesome. Their learning curve that day went sky high. And they came back changed. What I'm going to do with you today is not pontificate from a stool and tell you what you ought to be thinking. We're going to learn together today. Really learn together today. And so what I want you to do, in your insert, this is how we're going to roll. Because Paul's last words are filled with proverbial last-minute things that he wants to make sure that they know to do, we're going to take a chunk at a time. We're going to read a chunk, and then there's a line that says summary. That is your work. So this is not hard. You don't have to know this stuff very well because they're pretty common sense statements. But all I want you to do with your pen is, as we read a thing and I say, all right, scribble something down, write a word or two that summarizes what we just read. For some of you, it's going to be 1 word. For some of you, you're going to write like 6 paragraphs. That's fine. You do what you want to do, but I'm asking you to do it. And this is why I'm actually really asking you to do this. If you just sit and think, oh, Pete just kind of means write on paper. It's not going to make a difference. If I'm thinking it in my head, it's just the same thing. No, it's not. Something happens to you and your brain when you take a pen in your hand and write it on paper. In fact, Noah was just telling me that in one of his classes down at Pepperdine, the teacher will not allow the students to bring their computers into class and demands that if they are going to take any notes at all, it's going to be pen and paper. You know why? Because it sticks more in your head. So, let's get the party started. At the very beginning of Galatians 6, we have this text. Paul says, live creatively, friends. If someone falls into sin, forgivingly restore him, saving your critical comments for yourself. You might be needing forgiveness before the day's out. Stoop down and reach out to those who are oppressed. Share their burdens and so complete Christ's law. If you think you are too good for that, and click it again, Chris. If you think you're too good for that, you are badly deceived. Take a moment and summarize in your own words in that space provided that statement. I'm only going to give you about 20 seconds. All right, now what I want to do is each time we do this, I'm going to give you what I wrote down. Now, I'm not giving you what I wrote down, my summary, because it's the right answer, although we're probably going to agree that it's true. No, I'm kidding. It's not at all true. I'm doing it for you mainly because, not because I have the right answer, because I think there are many right answers to how to summarize this stuff. But I learned several years ago from a crosswalker that we don't all think alike. And sometimes, like, you need help to say, oh, this is what it could look like, or this is how to summarize. That's why I'm giving you the summary. So if you're totally drawing a blank, you got something to go on and to work with. So the next click is what I came up with, what hit me on this text. Bring it on up, Chris. So my summary for this is love people back when they mess up. That's kind of how I took this. And I don't always get this right. Honestly, if somebody smacks me pretty hard, my initial response is I want to hit back. I want to swing back. In my better days, I take a deep breath and I figure out how we can get to the bottom of what's really going on, and it doesn't become a shouting match. It becomes a healing kind of thing. But I'm curious. That was my thought, and that's what hit me in the moment. But feed me. What was a good summary statement for you? Just somebody shout it out. What do you got? Yeah, Fred. Reach out with love. I like that. Okay? Love always. That's pretty good. All right. What is it? Don't judge. That's good. What was that? Ego? Okay, watch your ego, I assume. Okay, very good. What else? Forgive and forget. That's excellent. Good stuff. Anybody else? Yeah. Say it again. Humbly forgive and build up others. That's great. Yeah, Sherry. Everybody needs forgiveness and can change. That's hopeful. I like that.
Bear one another's burdens.
Bear one another's burdens. Yeah, Curtis, that's great. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Okay, good job. See, you can do this. So let's go on to the next one. This is one that just clocked me pretty hard this week. I love this. In fact, I'm gonna write this out and put it on my bathroom mirror because I need to read this every day. Make a careful exploration of who you are and the work you have been given, and then sink yourself into that. Don't be impressed with yourself. Don't compare yourself with others. That's the one that kills me. Each of you must take responsibility for doing the creative best you can with your own life. Take a moment and summarize it for yourself. This, by the way, is the Message translation of the Bible, which is a very, very contemporary way to say the text. And I love this particular passage of it compared to others. All right. Okay, let's see what we got. So mine, Chris, if you want to bring that up. Be the best you, that's all you can do. And the reason this hit me so much, I don't know if this is a guy thing or a human condition thing or both or what, but I feel, there are a lot of times when how I feel about myself, particularly professionally, is dependent on the company I'm in or who I'm looking at. So if I'm in the company of people that are pastors and say much larger churches, I feel like a total loser sometimes. And this reminds me, nope, this is your work. This is it. And I love Crosswalk. That's the crazy thing. I love Crosswalk. I love who we are. I love where we're going. But that's why I need it on the bathroom wall. Is because I generally don't get so up on myself. It's usually the other way. It's usually I'm comparing myself and not feeling great about myself. And I need to remind myself, this is the task you're called to. Go for it with everything you got. So that's why I put, be the best you, that's all you can do. Somebody else, what do you got? Be confident. I like that. Okay, yeah. Care more about others than what they think of you. That's very good. Yeah, I like that a lot. Yeah. What else? Be true to yourself. Very good. Yeah. Say it again. Leverage your blessings. Yes. That's awesome. Because you're all original works of art, right? And you're all amazing. So why not leverage all the things that you are, bring to the table to experience life? Sherry. Be yourself and don't beat yourself up. Yeah, that's pretty good. I need to write that down. Yeah. Stuart. If you don't have a job, go look at the job list. Yeah, boy, that's true on all kinds of levels. That's pretty good. Okay, what else? Anything? Somebody out there?
Don't be selfish.
Don't be selfish. Joan in the back. Yeah, how about you, Beth? Be humble, content, and a good steward. Nice summary. Very good. All right, excellent. You guys are doing great. And there's a point to all this. We'll get to it eventually. All right, next slide. Let's have the next chunk of text. Be very sure now, you who have been trained to a self-sufficient maturity, that you enter into a generous common life with those who have trained you, sharing all the good things that you have and experience. Go ahead and summarize that, then I'm going to give you a little twist. This one may seem a little different, and you're probably going to come to a place based on how Eugene Peterson worded this, that you're probably going to miss its original application. And I did that kind of purposely. So Paul's original intent here, remember, this is the end of a letter to a group of churches. And he's basically saying to these churches, my fill in the blank, support your church, which you can bring up, Chris. Support your church. And the reason he's saying that is you got people who are leading you in your places of worship. Make sure that they're not starving to death because they can't work because they're doing things to do their ministry with you. So that's the actual literal saying that Paul is getting at here, is to support your church. And by the way, I appreciate your support very, very much. You have enabled me to raise my family and do hopefully a good job here as your pastor, and I know that Darlene would say the same thing. We thank you for that. That's awesome. But my guess is that there are other applications to this, to these verses beyond supporting your church that you came up with. Here's what I want you to do different. Rather than calling it out from your seat up to me, I want you to say it to somebody at your table. Anybody who's got one that you feel is worth saying, and I'll give you 20 seconds to do it, starting right now. Five, four, three, two, one. I even gave you more time than 20 seconds. So that'll give you something to talk about over lunch. All right, let's keep going. Next slide. So it says, don't be misled. No one makes a fool of God. What a person plants, he will harvest. The person who plants selfishness, ignoring the needs of others, ignoring God, harvests a crop of weeds. All he'll have to show for his life is weeds. But the one who plants in response to God, letting God's Spirit do the growth work in him, harvests a crop of real life, eternal life. Okay, take a moment. That's great stuff, man. Isn't this great stuff in Galatians 6? Take a moment, summarize it. What's the point? Going to give you about 10 seconds to finish your summary. Ish. All right, Chris, bring mine up. So this is kind of what hit me with this. We still reap what we sow. And the reason I put the still in there is this. And I think, and I've heard this in Christian circles before, that because the grace of God is so abundant and everlasting, that I think sometimes we in the Christian world just kind of blow off how we live our lives. And it's like, I can do whatever I want because, I've got the grace card in my favor. It's going to be okay because of the grace, so it's no big deal. I'll just do what I want. And when the Holy Bus comes to take me home to heaven, it's all good. Now, that's really not it. We still reap what we sow. Sometimes people make decisions and you have to reap what they've sown. That stinks. Sometimes our lives are a mess because we sowed the mess a long time ago and now we're having to pay for it. So we still reap what we sow. Our behavior still matters for the quality of our life now, and not just our life but the life of many others. Take 30 seconds and share around the tables. What jumped out at you? How do you summarize this? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. You guys are doing great. All right, let's go on to the next text, see what we got. So let's not allow ourselves to get fatigued doing good. Boy, there's some good stuff out of the early service on this one, by the way. See if you guys can top them. So let's not allow ourselves to get fatigued doing good. At the right time, we will harvest a good crop if we don't give up or quit. Right now, therefore, every time we get the chance, let us work for the benefit of all, starting with the people closest to us in the community of faith. Take a minute, take a stab at it. Take a moment, do it around the tables, and I'll tell you what I said. You got 30 seconds. All right, very good. So, Chris, show me what I said, because I forgot. Do good no matter what. Pretty straight and simple for me. Just do good no matter what. Interestingly, there is an interesting point here where Paul says start with the community of faith that you're in. In other words, learn to do this really well in community for two reasons. One is this is training ground for us. So if we can't figure out how to love each other well here, well, what's our shot out there? Probably not great. And the other thing is there is a depth of love in community that you only get in community that you can't do out there. And the deeper we go in the love, the deeper is that love resides in us. So we need community to learn to go deeply into the heart of love. If it's just surfacey stuff out there, that's great. But the depth of love is not going to get very deep unless we're in community. But anyway, do good no matter what. All right, let's go on to the next one. I think we got a big chunk here. Now, in these last sentences, I want to emphasize in the bold scrawls of my personal handwriting the immense importance of what I have written to you. So you need to pay attention here, because that's exactly what Paul's doing. All this letter, he's been giving this to a scribe, and the scribe is a professional handwriter, so he's been writing this thing down. And now Paul wants to make sure they all know this is really, really, really what I think. This also gives us a clue that maybe Paul had a serious vision problem. That's one of the things that we know. We're not quite sure exactly what kind of ailments he had, but one of them might have been vision, which is why he's got to write with such big, sloppy handwriting. So he's writing in big, sloppy letters this. These people who are attempting to force the ways of circumcision, remember, circumcision is symbolic for trying to earn God's favor through law-keeping or religiosity. And he's saying that's a problem. So when you see circumcision, that's what he's really getting at. These people who are attempting to force the ways of circumcision on you have only one motive. They want an easy way to look good before others, lacking the courage to live by a faith that shares Christ's suffering and death. All their talk about the law is gas. Love that. They themselves don't keep the law, and they are highly selective in the laws they do keep, or they do observe. They only want you to be circumcised so that they can boast of their success in recruiting you to their side. That is contemptible. By the way, this phenomenon of bragging about the people you've got to convert, that is all over pastor land, all over the place. There are lots of pastors that are thrilled to announce how many people they baptized last year and the year before that, and it's all gas. It's just gas. So anyway, summarize, and I'll make you talk. that, take a moment and share with your group. What's your summary? All right, very good. Let's keep on going. Chris, what did I put up there? Stick to love no matter what. Pure and simple. Okay, let's go on to the next text and see what we got. For my part, this is Paul speaking, I am going to boast about nothing but the cross of our Master, Jesus Christ. So let me take a pause there and let you know what's coming in a month. So you get 3 weeks of Ruth, which is going to be awesome, by the way. You got PhD Jenny coming in to tell you about the book of Ruth, and you're going to get another book under your belt. Ruth is a really, really cool story with interesting backstory stuff that if you just read it on the surface, you're going to miss so much. But Jenny, I mean, she's working on her PhD in Old Testament. She's incredibly energetic, got to be the most energetic person I know. And she will bring it, man, and she's excited about it. So you got 3 weeks of Ruth coming at you. It's going to be awesome. And then we come back, give you a report on Faraha on March 12th. Starting March 19, I'm going to start a series on the cross. Curtis gave me this idea almost a year ago, saying, hey, why don't we do a series on the cross? And I thought, that's a great idea. We'll do one leading up to Easter. So the cross is not a single-faceted phenomenon, but it's multifaceted, the way we think about it. So we're going to go deep on theology, the Bible, church history to understand the complexities and the depth of the cross. A lot of people don't like the cross. There's actually much, much, much there to boast about and to embrace. And it's a part of our church's name for a reason. So we'll talk about that leading up to Easter starting March 19. So I divert, now we get back into it. So he's only going to boast about the cross of our Master Jesus Christ. Because of that cross, I have been crucified in relation to the world, set free from the stifling atmosphere of pleasing others and fitting into the little patterns that they dictate. Can't you see the central issue in all this? It is not what you and I do, submit to circumcision, reject circumcision. It is what God is doing, and He is creating something totally new, a free life. And on the next slide, we keep going. All who walk by this standard are the true Israel of God, His chosen people. Peace and mercy on them. Take a moment. Summarize. And share with your group. What's jumping at you? Good job. I know I'm cutting you off. Sorry about that. But we'll keep on going. All right, so what did I put down, Chris? Join God for life and freedom is kind of the idea. And the idea that Paul sowed actually in a couple different parts in Galatians. There's another thing, cool, interesting thing here that you need to know about. But, you know, Paul this whole time through Galatians is doing this dance of saying, you know, you're enslaved to the law and it's killing you. Rather, you should be a slave to Christ. We looked at that last week. And it's like, if we're slave to ourselves, our own selfishness, or to the law, which is another form of selfishness, thinking that if we just do it good enough, then God will embrace us, those both lead to death. But if we sell ourselves out, if we sell ourselves to the way of Christ, which is the way of God, which is the way of love, that's when we find true freedom and true life. So that's what I meant by join God for life and freedom. If you talk to many Jewish people, especially people who know much about theology, the difference between Christianity and Judaism, they're going to have a pretty good conversation with you about Jesus. In fact, they're going to pretty much like Jesus for the most part. Not going to have too big of an issue with Jesus. Bring up the Apostle Paul, however, and you've got another conversation. Because Paul, especially in the letter to Galatians, said some terrible things that Jewish people, if they're strict in their thinking, don't really like, and would probably say, I don't know if Paul's really selling this thing straight, whatever. And one of those statements is right here, that all who work by this standard are the true Israel of God, his chosen people. That's not going to sit great with people who interpret that in an entirely different way. So Paul has been one of those that's been hard for Jewish people to swallow because of how we view what he had to say. I don't think it's completely fair, Paul, but that's okay. All right, let's go on. The final one, I think. We might have one more after this. Quite frankly, I don't want to be bothered anymore by these disputes. I have far more important things to do, the serious living of this faith. I bear in my body scars from my service to Jesus. That's a quick and easy one. What do you say to that? Chris, what did I put on this one? Living the faith beats arguing about it. Yeah, you know, isn't that part of our problem with the political system today? I don't want to get into politics, but isn't that what American people are really frustrated about? Is we keep talking about politics and not doing the things that we want to do for each other. It's the same thing in theology. We argue and we bicker about this and that way of thinking about theology when really we should just be getting together and doing this love thing to take care of people. That's the point of it. So living the faith beats arguing about it. James is actually really famous for this in his letter where he says, you talk to me all you want about your faith. I'm going to show you by what I'm doing with my life. I mean, that's the one that really actually sells. Take 2 seconds and share around your table. All right, so you have one final thing to do. We've been through all this text, and my hunch is that, you know, as wonderful as a communicator as I am, I bet you've learned more this morning just going through a section at a time than when I would try to tell you all about these things, which is why I wanted to do it this way with this particular text. But there's another piece of work to do, and that's in the next slide. So I want you to review all the different things that we looked at this morning, and this is what I want you to do with it. I want you to ask the question, what from this chapter, this is Galatians 6, seems to be jumping out at you most? So the summary points kind of help you determine which of those chunks that we looked at really seems to be coming out at you the strongest. And the next question is, assume that God, part of that question is, why do you think that's jumping out at you? And then the middle question there is, assume God is involved here. And I really mean that. What if God actually is trying to open your eyes to something in this text today? What do you think God might be trying to say to you, if that's true? And if you think God's trying to say something to you on that one thing that jumped out, what's your response to what's happening here? What are your next steps going to be in response to what's happened this morning? Take just a moment or two and jot down at least a note about these. Then you're almost done. All right. So this is really good lunchtime conversation about what jumped out at you, and I hope that you will. I hope that you'll stay. We got enough food for everybody. It's a good cause. We're going to take the wad of cash or whatever. In fact, check this out. Somebody gave me this big wad of cash after the first service. Look at this. Isn't that incredible? 20s. Just said, take this to Faraha. And I haven't had a chance to give it to our treasurer yet. Isn't that incredible? That's awesome. So we're going to take the big bundle and just leave it there with them, and they can figure out the best way to do with it then. It's incredible. Which leads me, before we do the benediction, you have these little boxes on your tables, and that's where we want you to communicate with us. So if you have support for the church, throw it in there. If you have a prayer concern for us or a comment about today, throw it in that box. And the last thing we're going to do before we sing this awesome song is I want you to stand with me, and we're going to say the next screen out loud. I'll put that. Now here's the deal. Some of you, when you ever see a screen like this that we say out loud, you make it a game, a challenge to see how quietly you can say these words. So you still get credit for moving your lips, so I won't call you out. But you're really inaudible. Well, that's not going to work today, because there's this oh yes at the very end. That was an amen. And Paul wanted us to see this and be like, oh yeah, we're all over this. This is a good news thing. Benediction is words of blessing. And so this is what Paul is saying to you. And we're going to keep saying this out loud together until you convince me that you actually buy it, okay? So let's say this out loud together. May what our Master Jesus Christ gives freely be deeply and personally yours, my friends. Oh yes, that's not bad, but you can do better. So let's try it again. May what our Master Jesus Christ gives freely be deeply and personally yours, my friends. Oh yeah. All right, now you need some hand motions in this, because if you're Warriors fans, you're doing this, or Giants fans, even A's fans and Raiders fans, not Niners fans. There's nothing to do this for with the Niners. But anyway, I digress. Let's say it out loud with some gusto. May what our Master Jesus Christ gives freely be deeply and personally yours, my friends. Oh, yes. Now let's